Today on Locked On Rockies, do you have a healthy arm and pitching abilities? Well, you might be able to pitch for the Colorado Rockies. Kidding, but the injuries are a problem.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 9th day of August in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies when you comment on the videos there, just like our friend Jack did, who let me know in the middle of the game yesterday Ryan Feltner had been removed due to a shoulder strain. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Rockies getting thumped and look ahead to the series against the Braves. My little graphic, my little overlay graphic was kind of easy to update today because unfortunately it was a flip-flop of the final of the game 2 against the Mets. And unfortunately, we got even more bad pitching injury news yesterday there. So we got to talk about that and a lot more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the most exciting and easy way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So that wasn't fun. Game was a loss from the get-go yesterday, and unfortunately it highlights the frustrating parts with Austin Gomber. And I don't want to go dip into the well too quickly, but I have to, because the theme yet again rears its ugly head. It's consistency with Austin Gomber. Consistency is the issue with Austin Gomber. He is the biggest offender of this, or one of the biggest offenders of this. He had, in the month of May, opponents were batting 172 against him with a whip of 83. He had 19 strikeouts to 6 walks in that month, only gave up 2 home runs, only gave up 2 earned runs in that entire month, over 26 and 2/3 innings pitched. He pitches less innings in July, 23. He gives up 24 earned runs, 5 home runs, walks 7 while striking out 15. The batting average against it doubles nearly to 350. The whip adds a full point at 1.83. Then you go into July. Opponents are batting 300 against him, whip of 135, striking out 22 to walking 3. So the strikeout walk ratio was there, but 16 earned runs, and 6 of them being given off the long ball. Now in this month already, in 2 starts in August, he's already allowed 7 earned runs and 4 home runs. What happened between May and these 3 months? Because this is a massive decline. This is a massive step backwards. In April, Austin Gomber's second best pitching month this year, 248 average against him, a whip of 1.24, 19 strikeouts to 8 walks, allows 12 earned runs and 5 home runs. So in 27 innings pitched. So that's a little bit more normal, a little more that should be more of the norm there. It's not going to blow your socks off, but handling business and getting the job done. So my question is, and I'm sure there's numbers and things here, but what's the difference? Where's the and again, this just goes back to, what are the Rockies doing here? Is this a thing that you can't really change that much of in the middle of the season? Can you not tinker or do things or figure out how to work with this pitcher who went from having a 2.76 ERA in his last start in May to now has an ERA of 4.79? So I again ask, where is the adjustment? Where's the coaching? Where is the off the field? Where is the preparation? Where are the Rockies in getting Austin Gomber to where he needs to go and getting Austin Gomber to be consistent? Because he hasn't been consistent in his entire Rockies career, even though I know that and up and down is saying it lightly, is saying it generously. And I understand the context of the situation, but this is, again, another situation in which you traded for this player. You saw and you were intrigued and you were enthused by this player, but yet you have not helped him get to where he needs to be. You have not helped him develop into the player that you thought he was going to be. Is that just the player? Is that the player's talent? Is it just on Austin Gomber? Or is it, again, another reflection of the Rockies can get the best out of their players consistently? They cannot get them into a position in which they're playing the best versions of their version of baseball consistently, because Austin Gomber has a good month, but then he falls off completely and doubles all of his stats. Is that just Austin Gomber? Or is that the preparation and the philosophies of this team? Austin Gomber plays a big role in that. Absolutely. Clearly, the looping curveball and his movement and his pitch selection aren't fooling people anymore. And they don't consistently fool people. But when I see a guy like that struggling, when I see him have moments of greatness, a month, this wasn't just a flash in the pan moment there of good pitching for Austin Gomber. This was 4 starts. This is 26 innings pitched. This is one of the, on top for right now, the 3rd most innings he pitched in a month this season. And he had his best numbers. Instead of now a track in which people are batting over 300 against him. And yes, he drops the batting average and he gets some improvement there in the month of July. Absolutely. But where's the consistency? It's Ryan McMahon. Where's the consistency? Chris Bryant. Where's the consistency? Charlie Blackmon. Where's the consistency? Where is consistency? I mean, again, it's just when you watch those other teams, why have the Mets fought back? It's because they've been able to put together solid, good stretches of ball of them playing up to or higher than their abilities. And the Rockies constantly will show you, hey, bam, here's an exciting thing, and then duds. And I mean, if that was the series, right? That was this whole series against the Mets. That's a good quality win. That's a solid quality win for the Colorado Rockies to open up the series. The Rockies then score 4 runs and get outscored 14-4 in the next 2 games. Like, it's a huge problem. And again, this is why when you go back and when we talk about coaching staff, when we talk about all of that type of stuff, these are moments, these are situations where what are we doing? What, like, I really, again, I ask, and I know I can't get the insight to, but how are the Rockies handling this as a coaching staff and as a front office? The players are the players. And at this stage, it's about, I'm more focused on this organization not being able to get the most out of its players and not being able to develop talent the way they think they can, and in the way that can handle and be competitive in Major League Baseball. It's just, I mean, I don't, and you hate to just pile on players, and you hate to pile on a guy that has gone through it like Austin Gomber, but I mean, he is a perfect example of the streakiness and of the frustrations of the Colorado Rockies. Because I really don't know if I believe the Rockies are helping Gomber get to the position he wants to go. I'm not fully confident in the Rockies organization getting the most out of Austin Gomber, because I'm not confident in them getting the most out of just about anybody at this point. And the development of Ezekiel Tovar and Brenton Doyle is great. And maybe that counters the argument. But I'd like to see it from the veteran presence. I'd like to see it from the guys that have been around here. I'd like to see the Rockies get a little bit more from the guys that are supposed to handle business. And again, with Austin Gomber, you made this move. You made this move. And you haven't figured out playing time for the big prospect you wanted in the trade, and you haven't been able to get Austin Gomber to develop into a consistent pitcher. That is something you have to think about, and that is something you have to consider when evaluating these players. It is still part of it is not the main focus. It has been a while, but it is still something you have to think about and you have to consider. Really tough news for the Rockies on the injury front. Germán Márquez will not pitch again this season. Absolute total gut punch bummer in an absolute total gut punch bummer of a season. We'll talk about that and the other injuries coming up next on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, folks, got to tell you about the show that helps me, or the people that helps make this show possible, and that includes Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV, and Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor, a surefire summer treat. It's a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Well, guess what? That's not all. You can find all the flavors on their website. And they got lemon lime. They got pina colada. They got a little bit of everything. And you're like, Liquid IV, what is that? Well, you tear, you pour, you live more. One stick of Liquid IV plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. We are also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is always what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Thanking you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out our pal Sully on Locked on MLB. He's got you covered. All things Major League Baseball all season long and into the postseason. He's getting you ready for the postseason. The postseason. We're already talking postseason. Yeah, it's right around the corner for teams that actually get to go and play in the postseason. But Sully's got you covered there. So shout outs to him and shout outs to SiriusXM. They got you covered with your play-by-play action all season long. Just fire up SiriusXM or the SiriusXM app. Okay, so we opened up the the story talking about the tough start for Austin Gomber. But here's the deal. It is not just Austin Gomber. It is all of them. And Manny Randall was writing for the Rockies again. Rotation challenges persist for the Rockies here. Let's see. Between injuries and underperformance, with some glimpses of hope sprinkled in, Colorado's starting staff has an MLB worst 5.50 ERA. There have been many tough days for the Rocky starters in 2024, but Thursday was one of the toughest. Right-hander Germán Márquez, who only made one start this year after Tommy John surgery in 2023, was shut down from baseball activities due to a stress reaction in his right elbow. Shortly after the net news broke, Gomber stumbled in the first inning, giving up 4 doubles and a 471-foot homer by Pete Alonso. Alonso went deep again against Gomber in the third. Gomber gave way to a taxed Rockies bullpen that could do little to stem the tide. In the first, Mark Vientos added a 2-run homer off of reliever Peter Lambert, who himself had to leave the game due to injury, and the Mets added 2 more in the 8th on a Francisco Lindor single and a Jose Iglesias sac fly. It is really, really tough, man. I mean, it has been really, really brutal. And Kyle Freeland elaborates this to Manny here. Pitching at Coors Field, obviously, we're the only team that has to deal with altitude like this, Freeland said. From a pitching standpoint, it makes it really hard. You've got to find your own path of what combination of stuff is going to allow you to have your best success here. There has been some success at Coors, to be sure, even amid the tumult. Prior to his outing Thursday, Gomber owned a 3.64 ERA at Coors Field this season. Freeland has pitched to a 2.51 ERA in 5 starts at Coors for this year. Quantrill's ERA at Coors Field in his first season with the Rockies is 3.29. So there's some good stuff and more into this piece that I highly recommend that you go read from Manny. Kind of dives more into that. But again, it is good to note that there are those flashes. It is good to note that Gomber has pitched decently well at home this year. Those are good things. But again, why are those just the stretches? Why are these not the norms? Why can we not get to the point where we expect these pitchers to be the best versions of themselves when we see flashes of, and why are we not seeing it consistently? But let's rewind here and let's focus on the Germán Márquez move. This is huge. I mean, it's a huge in the sense of just it really, really, really changes things in terms of the big picture. He's going to now be someone whose trade value is going to be severely limited until you can actually prove that he's healthy and can stay in the lineup. He's only going to be pitched 1 game in 2 seasons and change, I think, at this point now. I mean, depending on how serious this elbow injury is. Man, it's that one's a heartbreaker for sure. I mean, Germán Márquez was bona fide number 1 material. Guy was, I believe, when healthy, when at his best, a true ace of a staff. I mean, I do think that he is someone that when looking at maybe in not in every single rotation, but in most rotations across baseball, I would be confident in Germán Márquez being up there and leading the pack. So losing him thins out the depth and is going to make you rely on your Feltners and your Lamberts and your Davises, you know, your long relief and your spot starter guys. I mean, they're going to have to now fill this because Senzatella still hasn't come back yet and is only going to be a little bit. Is only going to be here for a little bit. It's just it is just a really, really, really tough slog for the Rockies and pitching especially, and it just got harder. And I'm curious now. I'm wondering if if they knew a little bit more about this towards the trade deadline, right? If you were worried about Germán Márquez and his ability to pitch the rest of the season, you don't trade Cal Quantrill, right? Like, you can't trade Cal Quantrill if Germán if what's happened to Germán has happened, right? I think that's the mindset. So I think if they might have known about this, if they had the inside read on this a little bit earlier, that might actually give us some insight into why Cal Quantrill specifically wasn't traded, because the Rockies would be sitting there and saying, I don't really think we could afford this. Especially considering Quantrill's got that extra year of team control. That's the difference maker there. It's yes, you didn't trade him when maybe his value was at its highest, but you needed him. You needed the starter. You needed the starter to finish this year, and maybe you can reapproach it or reevaluate it in the offseason. But that's a tough blow for the Rockies, and Germán's got to be totally heartbroken. It just, I mean, golly, man, that's Tommy John, and then you come back, and I mean, him and Senza just total cursed, man. Total curse. Like, how unlucky do you got to be? Like it really is when you think about it. Like that is it's unfortunate because it is so weird. Like, and what are the odds? Both of the guys, 2 key components to the Rockies rotation, 2 guys that the Rockies believe in super highly. They both returned from long-term injuries and then re-injure themselves in their first start back. and not only injure themselves, but season-ending injuries. I really did not have on my Rockies bingo card that happening again to the Colorado Rockies. Just just tough news amongst the tough season, amongst the tough game, right? Good news is there's another one today. And the Braves, they're in trouble, man. Let's talk about that coming up next here in the next segment of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks. You've heard me talk about PrizePicks before, and guess what? It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Why? Because it's just you against the numbers. That's it. Not your really smart fantasy football friend that knows everything, the insides and the outs, knows the backs of every football card ever made. No, you get to pick your lineup your way, and you get to pick more or less on the stat categories that you want to focus on. You're in control, you against the numbers. That's how it works at PrizePicks. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks is covered every week, from loading select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And what day is today, folks? It's a Friday. You can see all the action and all the fun for yourself on PrizePicks and the PrizePicks app. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Remember, shout outs to my guy Sully on Locked On MLB. Perfect fit for your second listen of the day. If you want more baseball talk in the exciting world of Major League Baseball, you can go over there. And, of course, my guy Anilo Piro is doing the Locked On Rockies postcast there on the Locked On Denver Sports channel. Make sure you're going over there and supporting him. He probably had some fun. He's a Mets fan deep down. So I think he had some fun watching this weekend. Not so much from the Rockies, covering the Rockies perspective, but I would imagine a fun series for him. Always conflicting, when you got your real, deep down, your fandom team taking on the team that you cover. It's always interesting. I'm just a Rockies fan that talks Rockies, and I get to be miserable with all of you. Okay, the Rockies take on the Braves. Scary team that clearly has some firepower, team that clearly can do some damage, team that is underperforming by a lot of metrics. Actually, this is a team that I think a lot of people are surprised about the fact that right now, after the last series, and the fact that they have lost now 5 in a row, maybe is that 5? Yeah, at least 5 in a row. They are now behind the Mets in the standings. And we talked a little bit about this, right? We talked about how the Rockies are going to directly impact the standings of the NL East this week and this weekend, depending on how they played. If the Mets handled business and the Braves didn't, the Mets were going to be able to find themselves in second place and back in the wild card position. And the Braves find themselves on the outside looking in. I saw this. If the season ended right now, the Atlanta Braves would not be in the playoffs. And that's a pretty crazy thing to say when you really think about it. I mean, that is a wild. I mean, they have been a dominant machine for a long time, and especially of years of late with really, really good teams. And for them to be middling, as they're still sitting 6 games above 500, mind you, is interesting. But they just lost to the Brewers in 3 straight. They lost to Miami they split a series with Miami after rattling off 4 straight wins. So they responded. They had 4 straight wins and answered with 5 straight losses. A little rocky stretch there for the Braves. So they're certainly going into this series looking to do damage. And let's take a look at some of the team numbers here to see where the Rockies rank up against this Atlanta team. And here's already a little surprise for you in terms of numbers. 242 batting average as a team for the Rockies. The Braves, 239. So there you go. The Rockies have scored more runs. They have more hits. They do not have more home runs than the Atlanta Braves, only a 1 point higher on base percentage than the Braves at 304 to the Braves 303. Shout outs to the 303. Slugging, Atlanta's got the advantage there. 407 slugging to 399. So these offenses are more aligned than we think, which is very interesting. The Atlanta obviously a little bit more deadly with the long ball, but the Rockies' home run hitting has come really alive of late in the second half. They're a different home run hitting team after a really, really slow start to the season there. But as always, here's the big difference maker, and here's going to be where the reason why the Rockies win or lose. It's team pitching. Here we go. Rockies team ERA 5.51. Atlanta 3.68. Colorado's whip 1.52 to 1.23 whip for Atlanta. The Rockies have walked 395 people. The Braves have walked 332. Here again, just like with the Mets series, here's a massive difference here. Rockies 796 strikeouts this year as a team. The Braves 1,050. What do the Rockies do a lot? What's the warning sign for the Rockies? What do we know is a very high likelihood of things to happen to the Rockies? Striking out. That number is going to be the difference maker. One of the difference makers in this series. Teams are batting 287 against the Rockies, where they're only batting 240 against the Atlanta Braves. So there you have it. Of course, the Rockies are sending out the young guy Tanner Gordon as well. So it's going to be a matchup of two guys that haven't pitched a ton this year, but it'll be interesting to see how Grant Holmes, the pitcher for the Braves, handles Coors Field. In 33 innings pitched so far for Holmes, he's got a 3 ERA and a whip of 1.00. 33 strikeouts to 6 walks, only giving up the 2 home runs so far. So the Rockies want to do some damage and get ahead. They're going to have to be able to hit the long ball and do some damage, something that they have been doing more of. Interesting enough that the matchup predictor on ESPN, and that uses their analytics, it's got a 58.5% win chance to the Braves and 41.5% for the Rockies. And I find that very high for the Rockies, to be totally honest. It's very interesting that I guess when you break down and you dive deeper into the numbers, these teams are a little bit more similar than we thought, a little bit more similar in things. But it's interesting to note here. Marcell Ozuna leads the Braves in home runs. He has 33. The Rockies team leader is Michael Tolio with 19. I think there's like a 3-way tie with 19 home runs. I mean, so that kind of puts it into perspective for you as well. When you're looking at some of this stuff, it's just they're the Braves. They are a good team that can do a lot of damage and has handled the Rockies very well in the past for sure. So we'll see how they handle heading into Coors Field and taking on the Rockies here and Tanner Gordon. The Rockies need a good start from their pitching staff to feel to get a little bit more confidence brewing in that group, as it has been a tough week for the pitchers there. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, giving you a heads up, the schedule next week is going to be a little weird. The episodes will probably post a little bit later in the mornings / afternoons. I got a new work schedule for a week and a half, so I got to deal with that, but we'll still be bringing you daily Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. Hope you enjoy a great weekend of Rockies baseball. And until I was going to already wrap it up, but I already got, I'm going to give it more of the rigmarole here. Folks, please check out the show on YouTube. Check out the show on your favorite streaming services. If you can leave those 5-star reviews, if you can like the videos, leave your comments, really does help the show grow. And folks, if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, got you covered. All things Colorado sports. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.